All right, and welcome back. We got another OU football show coming up here in just a minute, but I want to thank everybody for coming out and watching. Uh, got lots to talk about. Hopefully, we'll get all your questions answered. We'll be bringing on Chris here in just a minute, but this week tomorrow we got Chalk Talk. Wednesday night we've got the awesome countdown for the greatest Christmas songs and the most annoying Christmas songs on Wednesday. So make sure you're tuning in for that. As well as on Thursday, we'll still be having Red River football show to talk about some stuff, as well as what's going on with the bowl games and things like that. So be checking out that. So glad everybody can come out tonight and tune in. If there's anything that you need to ask us during the show, please do so. We'll try to answer your questions as best as possible. But we're just going to be talking about, obviously, the great news for some, maybe not so great news for others, about the new OU football coach. So I'm sure some of you are excited, some of you are not, my Clemson fans. But lots to talk about, where OU is going in the bowl games, things of that. So we'll wait for Chris to get started. So I hope everybody's having a wonderful week, getting your Christmas shopping done. I know I am ready for Christmas already. The girls are excited. So we'll be getting stuff done and got lots of gifts for them. But please come out Wednesday night for the Christmas song, the Christmas countdown, if you will, on songs, the top 10 best that I like, and some of the not so good songs will be on that list as well. So we'll like to hear what you guys have to say, but I'm going to bring on Chris and we'll get started. A little bit better this time.
Yeah, a little bit better, man. The light was driving me crazy.
All right. Well, welcome tonight. I know that David Wilkins already disliking. He's already told me we're no longer friends because we took the coach away from him. But Coach Venables. But hey, let's talk about it. We got some things to talk about. Feels like it's only been a week, but man, I swear it feels like a month that we've been waiting for some kind of information on who OU would hire. I think you kind of mentioned it. Even that, I think it was Monday after we had that, or it was either Monday or Tuesday after the show. You had mentioned something about him being in town. So just curious what you think about the 23rd coach for Oklahoma University, Coach Brent Venables.
Well, I mean, it's got when we talked about it last Monday, it was kind of who we really wanted. In essence, we talked about going into the SEC. We really need just a defensive-minded coach, in my opinion. And I was looking it up because I know when he was here, people kind of had, once Mike left and he took over, some people didn't really care for him too much. So when he left, they were kind of happy about it. But then once he had all the success at Clemson, they're like, well, wait a second. Now we had this guy all wrong. We have messed this up. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking it up, and in the last 8 seasons with Clemson, and you probably saw it on my Facebook last night, but in the last 8 seasons with Clemson, the worst ranked defense they had was 15th in the nation. That's the worst. So, man, I think they nailed it on the head. I really did. I think, especially if he can get Levy to come over. I was looking up his offense at Ole Miss. If they've got Brent Venables as their head coach, I'm sure he's gonna have. We don't know their plans, if they're gonna get a defensive coordinator, if he's gonna call the plays, what's gonna happen there. But we know their defense is going to be stout just from their head coach, whether they have a defensive coordinator or not. But, if they can get Levy running that offense, I mean, he is just as good
Yeah,
as Lincoln Riley.
yeah, he's been ranked the last 3 seasons. He's been ranked the top 5. Lincoln Riley hasn't even been in the top 5 in the last 3 seasons on offense. His offense has been ranked. The stats I looked up today, Levy has been ranked top 5 in the offense for the last 3 seasons, and that's Ole Miss. Now, and I mean,
Yep.
absolutely, it's and I see and I go all over and I read Twitter and I read Facebook and I read all these things and here we ran him off last time. Why do you want to bring? We didn't run him off. He was offered a better position at Clemson, or he was offered the position at
Absolutely.
Clemson. We didn't run him off. I don't know where this whole thing and I get tired of it. The fans. I've seen fans from every fan base go, God, we need to fire this guy. We need to. If it doesn't go their way, we need to fire this. I get it. Every fan base is going to say that, and I'm not going to even mention some of the stuff that I saw about a certain game this weekend about a certain coach not even being able to make calls. So don't come at it like that. So every team has people that say they want him fired. So I get it. That's neither here nor there. The one thing I do like, and you brought it up and you nailed it right on the head, is I think you could say Clemson's in the ACC, but I mean, it's still SEC country. I mean, they still run sort of the same things. They still run smash mouth football there. So you're right. I think he is what needs to lead us into the SEC. Absolutely 100%. I think that was, like you said, that was our first pick. I think that was Joe C's first pick. From the moment that he found out, it wouldn't even surprise me if they were on the phone already sometime Sunday night to set this all up and wait. But another one that I get a kick out of is a lot of the comments I'm seeing. Well, he's a coordinator. Coordinator doesn't always mean as a good coach. People that are saying this obviously don't know that Bob Stoops was a coordinator before he got a head coach job. So I'm not saying Brent Venables is Bob Stoops. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is you don't.
Lincoln Riley was the coordinator.
You just don't become a head coach. It just doesn't go, oh, you're a head coach. You have to start somewhere, whether it's linebackers or receivers or running backs. You make your way up. So to sit there and say a coordinator can't be a head coach, I laugh at these people. I think a lot of it is uncertainty. I think a lot of it is probably jealousy, some of these comments that I'm saying. But overall, I think this is 100% the best hire that OU could have done.
I mean, like, yeah, it's people could say what they want. You have to be something else before you're just a head coach. You don't just come up through high school and they're like, oh, hey, man, here you go, head football coach at the University of – no. Everybody was a coordinator of some sort prior to becoming a head coach. Lincoln Riley was an offensive coordinator before becoming a head coach. Like you said, Bob Stoops was, Brent Venables was. Everybody was. Dabo Swinney was. David just said, before becoming a head coach. Everybody's a head coach or a coordinator before they become a head coach. And I think, but what people need to realize is Clemson won 2 national titles under Brent Venables' defense. And that's beating an SEC team.
Absolutely.
One of the best teams in the decade or last 2 decades, if you want to say, in Alabama. So you're not going to convince me that it wasn't a good pick, especially knowing that within the next 2-ish years, I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna go out on a limb. My bet is probably 2023. That's my guess that they're gonna head to the SEC, and I think that's perfect for Brent. That gives him a solid year if they do go in 2023 to get this team together, to hopefully see. The biggest piece of this now is that they have this head coach. If he can nail down an offensive coordinator, now it's going to be, and he's already hitting the recruiting trail, because now he's going to go try to hit these recruits that are having second thoughts or maybe have already kind of backed out, whatever maybe I've already read that there's Clemson players or Clemson recruits that he had brought into Clemson that have already backed out. So, and we're talking 4-star recruits.
Yeah.
So he's going to be hitting it hard because the 15th is signing day, and he has to make up. He's got a week. He's got a week of ground. Bob Stoops was out. We talked about it last week that he'd be out recruiting, but it's a little bit different having the actual head coach actually in the seat now and going to go out there and say, hey, listen, here's the deal. Here's my plan. Here's what we're doing as a college, and this is as our program, and this is the direction we want to go, and that's going to make a difference, and not only to incoming recruits, but to current players. I would have loved to been in the team meeting, their initial team meeting with Coach Venables, just to see what his message was, what he was kind of saying to him. Because, one of my biggest worries is we've already lost the receiver. I just went blank. Hazelwood, yes. So, we lost him. I'm not worried about Spencer. We were going to lose Spencer anyway. But what we don't need to lose is Caleb Williams. We lose Caleb Williams, now we're kind of like, oh, well, wait a second. Now we're going to have some. If we can keep Caleb Williams, I think keeping Caleb Williams will in turn help make sure that other pieces stay in place, which kind of scares me with Hazelwood leaving. Did he know something? Was he already out the door? Did he leave because Spencer left? Or does he know something that we don't know about Caleb? That's, it's kind of makes you wonder, and it kind of makes you worry because I'm not going to lie. I don't know who our third string quarterback is.
I don't right now, but I think Hazelwood was more on the Rattler team, if you will. I'm not saying there was clicks or anything like that. Obviously, I don't know. I think he clicked with Rattler a lot better. I know that he's gone, but I saw that Marvin Mims has slated that he's going to stay. I haven't seen that he's put anything in. And you and I talked about it. And I think that was priority number one. I mean, besides getting offensive coordinators and everything, I think priority number one, Alpha or Bravo, whatever you want to call it, was getting Caleb Williams to stay. And now I know that he talked to Caleb today, talked to his dad. They had the big meeting. I honestly think if Caleb, I really do. I honestly think if Caleb was going to leave, we would have already heard rumors about going to the portal or something of that. I think we would have heard that. I think he would have made his intentions known after the game. I'm going to go in the portal, or even they can go into the portal if they want, and then and still play, and then decide to go visit other schools. I think they can do. I think that's how the portal works, if I remember, because they can even pull out of the portal once they've gone in. They can go like, oh wait, you know what, change my mind. That kid from the running back, or no, was it somebody from Tennessee did that, where they were coming here and then, or LSU, the LSU kid went in the portal, came here, worked out for spring, and then went back to LSU. So I think Caleb is a hot item, and I think he stays. Personally, I think he stays. Like I said, I feel like the people who are going to, and I hate to, for lack of a better term, jump ship, have already jumped ship. I think they already have for the most part. I think the people that want to stay, like Nick Benito. He just decided today, he's declaring for the NFL draft. That's good on him. He can do that. That's fine. But I think the ones that were going to jump ship have already done that. Austin Stogner. Like we said, we knew Spencer Rattler. We knew, Jaden Hazelwood. That's fine. The recruits. Does that hurt? We've had 5 stars that haven't panned out before. And we've had 3 stars that have stepped up and gone on to get drafted. Yeah. We're going to get the talent. Look at and again,
Sam Bradford was a 3-star.
Yeah. And I liken it to Oklahoma State. Look what Oklahoma State did with 3 4-stars with that defense. Monster defense. So you can say what you want about recruiting. 5 stars are going to pan out and 5 stars aren't. 4 stars are going to pan out and they won't, and so they're just going to, it all depends on who that coach is. And I think we got the right coach. And I think you're right. I read somewhere today that he did say he was going out for a defensive coordinator as well. He said he will let them coach the defense. Now, the only one I know there was talk about the coach from, and I can't remember his name right off the bat. They talked about the coach from Arkansas today, the defense coordinator from Arkansas. They said something about him. He's Oklahoma native, grew up here. That was one, and I think that was the only one that they mentioned. But I know there's, I don't even want to, for lack of better term, Manny Diaz is a defensive coordinator now. I don't know. I think Levy is the right choice for offensive coordinator. I know there's a lot of people talking Brady out of Carolina, but he just got. I know NFL is different than college. I totally get that. But Brady is going to be an NFL guy. He's going to find another NFL job. Plus, if you know anything about Brady, this dude hates to recruit. He dislikes recruiting. You don't want somebody that dislikes recruiting on a defense. On your offensive coordinator. You want somebody that will go out and hit the recruit trail. And we know Brent's a good recruiter. We know that. I mean, I'm assuming that. God, I can't even think of his name. Running back right now. Running back coach. DeMarco. We know
DeMarco Murray
is a good recruiter. Yeah, DeMarco is a good recruiter. So we got recruiters. It's filling. I mean, it's filling up the coaching positions, and I have every faith in Brent in that. Like I said, he coached here for 14 years. Before he left, something like that. Because I think he was with Bob in '98, and then he was all the way up until 2012 when he left. 2012, 2014, something
2011,
like that.
2012.
2011, yeah. So I mean, I have full faith, and I hope that the OU faithful. Now I got like I said, some people are going to be happy about this hire. Some people are not going to be happy about it. And I'm talking strictly OU right now. I know there's some the Clemson fans are pretty broken up about it, but I mean, you gave us one of the best coaches back. You gave us a good coach back, and nothing to hang their head on. And Dabo will do the same thing that OU did. They're going to go out and rebuild up and refire on that. What's another priority that he's got to look at that right now, though? Off-season priority for him.
I think for right now, in this moment, it's going to be recruiting. I'm going to stick with that. Like, recruiting is going to be his top thing. Now, I've read, and I don't, obviously you read a lot of things when you're going through these kind of situations, but I read coming from an Ole Miss offensive recruit from Levy that he was supposed to have a meeting with Levy, and that meeting didn't happen. And that was on the heels of the possibility of Levy coming here. I think the first thing that he's gonna be busy. I'm going to tell you that he's going to be busy because it's going to be a mixture of trying to put a coaching staff together. I think that he'll keep most of the people that are already there. DeMarco Murray, he's there. A lot of those guys, I think they'll stay. I do think that he's got to concentrate on getting the rest of the coaching staff filled. But at the same time, like I said, you have early signing day coming and just 9 days on the 15th.
9 days.
So yeah. I think he's gonna have a list of recruits, and he's literally going to be using that private jet a lot within the next 9 days because he understands the importance of recruiting. And like you said, he's the best at it. We've got other coaches that are still doing it. Bob was helping out. That's great. But nothing beats a head coach coming in and talking to you saying, hey, listen, here's the deal. I'm the man now. This is a program. This is what we're doing. So I think that's really is going to be his main goal right now is recruiting with the side of filling the rest of those coaching vacancies, which I don't think that the coaching vacancies will take that long. I guess it just kind of depends on who he has in mind and who is kind of, if they're going to stick around, do they want to do it before the bowl game, after the bowl game? I think as a coach, you understand the importance of really needing to have a staff nailed down. It's just another help with the recruiting. I think once we get past the early signing days, I think it's really just going to be settling in. I don't foresee him. Bob is still going to coach them, from my understanding, in the bowl game. So,
Yes.
I think he'll be a part of it. I think he'll be there when he's not out recruiting. But I think that he's going to be a part of helping and being there and, having an appearance. Yes, Coach Stoops may call the plays, may run the show, but as a head coach and as a player, the players that are going to be back next year or debating being back next year, I think that's going to have an effect. Like, I still think that he'll somewhat have a part of, practicing, meetings, at least being there. I'm not saying running things, but at least have
Right.
a part in it so that the players can see that, hey, we have a coach that here, we know he's not coaching, but he's still going to be, a part of this group and a part of these meetings and practices. But outside of the bowl game, it's just really going to be getting accustomed to this team and, building it. It don't need to be built. It's already there. We went 10-2, and we're going in to play an Oregon team that they don't have a coach either. So, that's going to be a hit or miss. I think that the guys are going to go in because I do think that there's some players that are kind of bitter on how everything played out. A lot of players went publicly and said that, hey, we respect him and, good luck in his future. But I still think that there's players that are deep down that are like, hey, the kind of way that you did that was kind of jacked up. So I think there's going to be some bitterness, some chips on shoulders, per se, going into the Alamo Bowl. So that game's, it's if you ask me to pick that game right now, I don't know that I could tell you right offhand because it all depends on what OU team's going to show up. Are we going to have the OU team that played against Baylor or the OU team, granted they lost, that played against Oklahoma State? They played a much better game against Oklahoma State than they did Baylor, especially that defense. Yeah. And I think now, especially players that are going to come back, the defensive players now, I think for them, they have a fire because they know who they have coming in next year.
Absolutely. I think I mean that's probably the best thing that could happen to OU is getting a defensive coach. And I mean that's what Bob. I mean, let's be honest. That's what Bob was when he started out. Bob was, and that's why those and people talk about that's why those first few years, Bob's defenses were stout. They were just stout. Then they got into that whole spread offense, and that kind of went away because they didn't. I mean, they were focusing on those arms, and I get it, but yeah, going into SEC, that's what they need to focus on. I think the defensive kids are going to benefit from it, and I think that's what we need for the first couple of years. If he does not find a DC and he does just call it, he has an assistant DC or whatever you want to call, and he's the one calling the plays. I'm fine with that too for the first couple of years. I get it until we can find somebody that comes in there and is ready to take over. That's cool with me. And you were just mentioning it, and we were talking about the bowl game, and now who our opponent is. How bad is Bob chomping at the bits to get a little bit of revenge on the Oregon Ducks there?
Are you talking back from the onside kick days, or?
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's bad blood there for a while. I still have nightmares about that game. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There's been some bad blood with Oregon. Well, that's probably why I dislike Oregon to this day.
Man, I think honestly he's just. I don't think it mattered who the opponent was. I think Bob is just happy to be there. I don't think it's something he wanted to do long term, but I think, like he said, he's a program guy. He's always been there. He's always been a part of the program, whether he's on the sidelines, up in the box, whatever it might be. I think he's just happy to be back on the sideline, even if it is in the interim, helping the team out. And especially, like I said, guys are going to have chips on their shoulder. And I think, and in all honesty, look at the position Bob was in. He left this program to Lincoln Riley. So honestly, he's probably got a chip on his shoulder because he thought, hey man, I trust this guy. I'm leaving this program to this guy, and he's going to be around and he's going to do big things for decades to come.
Right.
And then and for his predecessor to leave the way he did, it's kind of like, wait a second, man. Like I entrusted you with these guys, with this program. Like there's, so I think maybe he has a bit of a chip on his shoulder. I think, like I said, it'd be hard to throw out a prediction without kind of looking at that. We do our college picks every week, and that's one thing that I always look at. I try to look at the numbers, man. Like, points scored against, what their offense does, what their defense does. Are they home, they away? This game's in San Antonio. It's going to favor OU because, it's an 8-hour drive compared to halfway across the country. So,
Right.
It's kind of a home field advantage for OU. But I think if their defense can play the way that they did against Oklahoma State, they'll have a good chance. I think I picked Utah the first time that they beat Oregon, just because I never really felt Oregon to be. I thought Oregon was overrated all year. So
yeah.
I think if OU's defense plays, man, Bob is coming into a good situation for the interim change. The only thing I do worry about, our offense struggled for basically all year, minus maybe playing Western Carolina School for the Blind or whoever it was back in the beginning. But our offense has struggled, so that's kind of one thing I worry about is the offense, because Bob's not an offensive guy. We know that. Bob always had offensive coordinators. Yeah. He always had some of the best offensive coordinators. And who's calling plays? That's
that's the question. And who's going to be calling the plays for the goal game? I mean, that's a good question. I would assume it's probably Gundy. I would assume it's
probably
Kale. So, and I'm not that I would take anything away from Kale. If that was who they moved up, I wouldn't take it away from him. I mean, he's produced a lot of good quarterbacks. I mean, he's been part of that quarterback system. So,
yeah, and
it'll
that
be
might kind of be his chance to shine.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it could be one thing. It's one thing I've always worried about, like when we've lost coordinators and things like that. Is that's always been. I know we're going to find a coach, and I knew from the day one we were going to find a coach. It's been my biggest fears who our coordinators are going to be, and but I as far as Brent goes, I think it's a 10 out of 10. That's me. He's OU. He's got OU in his blood, and he knows the system, and I think he'll do great here. Let me get a couple of things from you. If we stay in the Big 12, if we don't move, what is a realistic record for Brent first season here in the Big 12?
Next season, Big 12. Well, we know they're staying. They've already released the schedule. So unless they plan on completely revamping the schedule, they'll definitely be in the Big 12 for the 2022 season. And the thing about that schedule that was released, none of the new teams are on it. So that tells me right there that unless you're going to completely redo an entire year's schedule, that the Big 12 is going to be as it is right now, at least in 2022. Man, a realistic he's got the players. I think as long as Caleb Williams stays, I think, and he's still going to have Cale Gundy. We're still going to have a running game, with DeMarco. I think the offensive line needs a lot of improvement. They struggled the majority of the season. I know we lose at least one or two of them, if I remember correctly. I'd have to look at it. I don't have it right off, but if we've at least got three of the five linemen coming back, I think that helps. Man, I still don't see him going any worse than 8-9 wins. Realistically, it could be better if Caleb Williams stays and they can get that offense shaped the way that it should be. I mean, we're always going to have receivers to step up. Not worried about that. I'm not worried about Hazelwood leaving. Hopefully Mims will stay. He'll be a big help. We've still got good wide receivers that have stepped up outside of Mims and Hazelwood, especially with Caleb Williams. So I'm not worried about the receiving crew. Running backs, I know we're going to have some running backs, but it's just going to be a matter of that offensive line. You can have good running backs, but if you don't have a good offensive line, man, it's hard to get a running game going. And if you can't get a running game going, we know that it's gonna hurt your pass game. So to me, the key is that offensive line. If we keep Caleb Williams, getting that offensive line to where they're pushing people back, they're not getting pushed back, to be able to get the run game going. I'm not worried about the defense. I'm really not at all. Not the slightest worried about the defense. I feel like we'll probably have a very similar defense next year that we have this year, if not better. So, I mean, realistically, the only games that you really worry about is Baylor, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, and I mean, you got to think Texas at some point is gonna come in and maybe start playing. I don't, Kansas State always gives us trouble for some odd reason. I don't know, but I think realistically they shouldn't lose, more than 4 games at the most. And I don't even think that's the case.
No, I see Marcus put 10-2 or 11-1. I'm still on the 10-2. I'm still on the 10-2 frame. Realistically, I think the worst I think at worst it's 9 wins, 3 losses. That's my pick. A lot of these teams are going to be going through a lot. Oklahoma State's going to be losing a lot of the defense. Now, I'm not saying that they're not going to still be stout and still be, they're not going to just drop off in defense. That defense is pretty stout, and they got people stepping up. But they do lose a lot of the names that we were hearing constantly throughout the entire season. So they'll have to do a little restacking there on the defense. But I think my biggest worry is probably Baylor. Dave Aranda is a phenomenal coach. There's no doubt about that. So yeah, I'm still sticking with the 10-2 probably. The big fight will be obviously. I still think the big fight will be Baylor and Oklahoma State next year, and us fighting for that top position. As beaten, but the question is, and I've heard one report because you were talking about the offensive line. I've heard one report that Beatonbaugh is gone, and I'm hearing another report that Beatonbaugh is still here. Is he still here?
I haven't heard that he's leaving. The last that I read is that he was staying. That he wasn't a part of that group. The only people that I know of that were a part of that group were Grinch. Was it the wide receivers coach, I think, or the D-backs coach or something, and then another. Yeah, I don't think I saw Beanball's name on that list, and I haven't. I think the last that I did see of him is he was staying.
Yeah. And Marcus says if the DBs progress, I think they have to progress with was it Manning left? So I mean, I think they have to progress because they can't get any worse than what he was coaching them at. So I would think that they progress. I think. I mean, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm a Woody Washington fan, 100% Woody Washington fan, and I wish we could have a million Woody Washingtons because that kid is phenomenal. So I think you're right, Darby. I think they progress. Yeah, you're right. I did see that. Now I see that. I remember seeing that today. Thanks, Marcus. On the offensive line coach from Tulsa went there. Good call, Marcus. But yeah, I think they definitely progress in that secondary, and with you got to think that again. Venables has probably got people in mind that he wants to put in certain positions, especially knowing where we're lacking at as far as on that defense goes. But I love what he watched, and so I hope we can get more like him. He's a bright kid, and I think he's got talent to go far. So all right, so we did that. Hypothetically, we're going into the SEC next year, the next season, 2022. Hypothetically, give us a hypothetical record in the SEC. I'm just curious.
You're saying if Brent Venables' first season at the University of Oklahoma were to be in the SEC?
Yeah.
Man. That's
Change it a
tough
little
because
bit.
I've seen so many different ways that they've talked about breaking up the conference. Whether it be four different pods of like so many teams or whatever. And I think that makes a difference on what you would go in a season. Because I think if they just broke it down into two divisions, I mean, you're talking, what's that? What's that make 16 teams?
7 each. Yeah, it'd be 8. It'd be yeah, it would be 8 on each side. You'd have because obviously Oklahoma, Texas would come into the West Division. You'd have to move Alabama and probably I would assume that you'd probably move Alabama and Missouri over. I don't know if they did it that way. I don't know, but I like the pod. I like the pod idea.
Yeah, the pod idea makes the most sense because you play. What was it? It was teams of 4. That's right. So it's 4 teams of 4 in each pod. You played the other 3 teams that were in your pod, and then you broke it up, like 2 teams per the other pod plus your non-conference.
Yeah.
I think that makes a difference, on who you play. So, obviously if you went into next year and you had to play Bama and Georgia, you're probably losing those games. I think outside of Alabama and Georgia, going off of this season and the teams this season, I think OU doesn't stand a chance against Alabama or Georgia. Going off of this team that we have now and the teams that they have now, I think they can compete with everybody else. So it could be a 10-2, it could be a 8-4, realistically, going to the SEC, because I don't think the SEC really didn't have anybody else that was really just as dominating as a Georgia or as an Alabama. And I mean, you got A&M, who they had like spots where they looked good, like when they beat Alabama. You had Auburn, where they had little spots. You had Tennessee had spots. Obviously Kentucky, the year that they were good. LSU, doo-doo. I mean, it's just it really outside of those 2 teams. Like if you're going off this season, it could be an easy 10-2. But again, man, it's OU had times where you were like, oh my God, if this team just played like this all season, like they're unbeatable. But then you go up against Kansas and you can barely win. So you can go to Tennessee and you can beat them, or you can lose.
I'm starting to think there was extenuating circumstances in that game. So, all right, well, we talked a lot about that tonight. So let's meet up for early signing day. That'll be our next show. We'll do early signing day, and then we'll figure out where we go from there. Bowl game. Just kind of we'll figure out an off-season schedule. We can keep everybody updated. But I appreciate you coming on tonight. I think we're going to make this a regular OU show type thing. keep everybody updated.
I like
but
it.
I appreciate you coming on tonight, brother.
Hey, man, I appreciate it, bro.
All right, we'll see you. Thanks for coming out tonight, guys. Check out the rest of the shows this week. We got lots of good stuff, so come out and see us. We'll keep you updated on when our next show is. Have a good night.